He thought he had left his past behind, until he saw the woman who once raised him sitting on a sidewalk with a cardboard sign. And what he did next left the whole street in tears. The city was alive with motion that morning. Honking horns, rushed feet, and the usual haze of downtown traffic. Daniel Rhodes, 35, billionaire investor and CEO of Rhodes Capital, sat in the back seat of his luxury SUV, sipping coffee and scrolling through emails. His world was polished. Tailored suits, marble floors, rooftop meetings. He rarely looked out the window anymore. But today, something made him glance up. They were stopped at a red light. On the corner, hunched on a piece of cardboard, sat an elderly woman in a faded shawl, palms open, lips trembling with quiet pleas. At first, she was just another shadow in the city's blur, until Daniel's heart stopped. Those eyes. Warm brown, software, familiar. And then he saw the small silver locket around her neck, one he used to tug on as a boy whenever he was scared. "Maria," he whispered. He flung the door open. Ignoring the driver's protest, he crossed the street, nearly dropping his phone. She looked up. Her eyes widened, then watered. "Daniel," she rasped. "Oh my God," he breathed. What happened to you?" She tried to smile, but it faltered. Life. Maria Santos had once been more than a nanny. She was the woman who packed his lunch, kissed his scraped knees, whispered lullabies when his parents were too busy attending galas. She was home. And now she was here. Alone. Hungry. And Daniel knew in that single, crushing moment, he owed her everything. Maria stood slowly, leaning on a bent cane, the years heavy in her bones. Daniel helped her up, his expensive coat soaked in city dust as he steadied her trembling hands. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, his voice tight with emotion. "Didn't have many choices," she replied softly. "When your family moved away, I stayed behind. Then my husband died. Rent got high. My body got tired." She tried to smile, but Daniel could see the shame behind her eyes. "You were supposed to grow up and forget me," she joked weakly. "How could I?" he said, stunned. "You were the one person who ever made me feel seen." He guided her to his car, ignoring the stares of pedestrians. The driver scrambled to make space as Maria climbed in, her hands shaking with disbelief. Back at Daniel's penthouse, Maria sat on the velvet couch in awe. Her eyes traced the city skyline, glimmering beyond the tall windows. "This is what you built?" she whispered. "With your help," he said. "You raised me when my parents didn't know how she blinked fast." "I just did what I could." Daniel knelt in front of her, something burning in his chest. "You gave me everything, Maria. Now it's my turn." Over the next few days, Daniel's world paused for the first time in years. He canceled meetings, cleared his schedule, took Maria to a private doctor, bought her new clothes, and found her a warm apartment, rent-free for life. He sat beside her at dinner, listened to stories she thought he'd forgotten. "Remember when you refused to go to school unless I packed your sandwich a certain way? You cut the crusts off like magic," he laughed. But it wasn't just charity. It was redemption. Because the woman sitting across from him wasn't a burden. She was the thread that had quietly held his childhood together. And now he was going to make sure the world never forgot her again. A week later, Daniel stood at a podium in a packed auditorium, flashes from cameras lighting the stage. It was Founders Gala Night, a prestigious event honoring business leaders, philanthropists, and innovators. But tonight, Daniel wasn't there to accept praise. He cleared his throat, his voice calm but full of something deeper than pride. Gratitude. "People often ask me who mentored me, who inspired me, who shaped me." He paused, eyes scanning the crowd before locking onto a small table near the front. Maria sat there, dressed in a soft blue gown, her silver hair freshly brushed, her hands clasped in her lap. But her eyes, still the same warm brown, glimmered with quiet disbelief. It wasn't a CEO. It wasn't a best-selling author. It was a woman who packed my lunch every day and told me I mattered, even when my own parents were too busy to remember. He turned toward her. Maria Santos, you raised me with love, even when you had nothing. You gave me safety, kindness, discipline, and your heart. And tonight, I want to give something back. Gasps filled the room as the lights dimmed. Behind Daniel, the screen lit up. The Maria Santos Foundation, providing safe housing, meals, and job support for retired caregivers and domestic workers across the country. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. This is yours, Daniel said softly, because no one should dedicate their life to raising someone else's children and end up on the street, not on my watch. The crowd stood in ovation. Maria wept quietly, not from pity, not from sorrow, but from being seen, celebrated, loved for the first time in a long time. That night, as they rode home together in silence, Maria whispered, "You didn't have to do all this." Daniel smiled and took her hand. "You did it first. Because the best kind of love is repaid not in money, but in honor." And Daniel wasn't just building wealth anymore. He was building legacy. In the weeks that followed, Maria's life blossomed in ways she never imagined possible. Her new home wasn't just warm. It was hers. Sunlight poured through the curtains every morning, and neighbors, caregivers, housekeepers, retired nannies stopped by with casseroles and stories. Daniel made sure she had everything she needed, and more. But what Maria loved most was the time. Time to read, to rest, to be remembered not as someone who used to help, but someone who had mattered all along. Daniel visited her every Sunday. They made pancakes, watched old black and white movies, walked through the park like they used to when he was just a kid, in too big shoes and scraped knees. "You were my real home," Daniel said one afternoon, as they sat on a bench under golden leaves. Maria chuckled. "You were my wild one." "You were my heart," he replied. 1 year later, Maria stood beside Daniel at the ribbon-cutting ceremony of the second Maria Santos Foundation Center, this one in her hometown. She gave a small speech, voice trembling but proud. "I thought I was forgotten, but now I know kindness comes back. Sometimes it takes years, but it always finds its way home." And Daniel? He didn't just fund centers. He built a scholarship in Maria's name for young women in domestic work. He hired retired nannies as consultants for parenting tech startups. He started speaking openly, not just about business, but about the unseen heroes behind every successful child. Because the world needed to know, behind every empire is a heart that once made sandwiches and wiped away tears. As Maria rocked quietly on her front porch one evening, a familiar pair of footsteps approached. Daniel. He kissed her forehead like she once did for him every night. "I'll always come home to you," he whispered. She smiled through misty eyes. "And I'll always be here." Because some debts aren't paid in cash. They're paid in love, respect, and coming back for the ones who never let you fall,